Hey everybody. I see I've gotten that sun. I'm trying to get somewhere in the kitchen to where now I can kind of see you. There was a lot of people the other day that didn't know what a hoe cake was. And they wanted me to make hoe cakes, and I thought, well, I'm not doing anything right now, so I thought I've got some meal in here and I need to cook up a few hoe cakes. So I thought I would kind of explain what a hoe cake is. A hoe cake is just something that we call them in Kentucky. This is a type of just a little old cornbread cake that actually originated back when the Pilgrims first came over here on the Mayflower. And the ones that helped them learn about this were the Native Americans. And actually the cake started out being called a Shawnee cake. Shawnee Indians. Well, they think that over time the Pilgrims just kind of took Shawnee and said Johnny cakes. You know, they drawed it out, just kind of slurred it and said Johnny. And you know, we do that a lot with our speech. We kind of just say things quick, or we cut part of it off. But anyway, I've heard them called journey cakes, Johnny cakes, hoe cakes, you know, everything under the sun. And the Native Americans taught them that you could grind corn and make a batter out of it and pour boiling hot water in it and then cook it in a hot skillet of bacon grease, you know, some kind of fat, whatever fat they had. And used to years ago, I love to cook hoe cakes in bacon drippings, you know. It gives them such a good flavor. But anyway, I can remember when I was teaching, we talked about the Pony Express. And they would have to ride the horses, you know, for long distances. And they had to have something to eat because they didn't have time to stop at a town somewhere and get something to eat. They had to carry stuff in their saddle bags and their saddle packs. So they would make these little Johnny cakes or journey cakes because they would last for the journey. And that's how these have been kind of passed down over time. And every year in Rhode Island now they have a Johnny Cake Festival to make Johnny cakes and, you know, have contests with it. And there's different variations. It's kind of, as it filtered down into the South, where I'm from, the South kind of did things just a little different. We started adding buttermilk, and some people add eggs, and some people just still add the water. So me, myself, personally, I usually use a little buttermilk or just regular sweet milk. And if you hear me call it sweet milk, that's just regular milk, guys. That's what my granny always called sweet milk, because back when I was a little girl, she might have a jar of buttermilk in the refrigerator and you couldn't tell the difference because they were both in glass pickle bologna jars, you know. They just repurposed every kind of thing there was back then. They didn't throw away a big gallon glass jar. And if they could go to the little local grocery store, just little country stores, and if they had a pickle bologna jar that was empty, they would ask for it. They would usually pickle eggs in the vinegar, and then when they had pickled eggs a couple times in it, they would pour out that old vinegar that they couldn't use anymore, and they would rinse it and wash it and everything, you know, and then they would start putting their milk in it because people liked a glass jar. It just, your milk just kept better in a glass jar. And my grandparents milked. They milked 9 cows by hand every morning and 9 cows every night by hand. And so I grew up drinking and hearing my granny call it sweet milk. So if you ever hear me call it sweet milk, that's what it is. I'm not trying to confuse anybody. I just want you to understand. Now, we're going to make some hoe cakes or journey cakes or Johnny cakes or just whatever you want to call them. And if you've never tried any, try some. And I'm going to show you the easiest way to start out doing it. Don't try to put 3 or 4 in a skillet at one time. It's very similar to cooking a pancake, but and you do about the same thing. You want to wait till you start seeing the little bubbles on top, and that lets you know that it's time to turn it. That side's probably done. If you all know that about pancakes. Your batter will get little bubbles in the top of it as it starts, you know, cooking and cooking through. So Evan's in here with me. He said, Nanny, can I be in the video with you? I said, well, sure. You want to tell everybody hi?
Hi.
Say, how y'all doing?
What are you doing?
Say, my nanny got off of her soapbox with the negative people.
Yeah.
I just don't want anybody's feelings hurt. It doesn't bother me as much, but if I let them get by with doing it, then they're going to do it to somebody else on the page, and I've already had that problem once. So I find that, I just let the teacher part of me come out. I address the problem. I don't run from it. I address it, because I'm not going to put up with people just looking for something to nitpick about it. This is not the place, and we're just not going to do it. But anyway, let's get away from that. I don't want to talk about no more, and we're going to talk about cooking some hoe cakes, and I'll be right back when I get my stuff on the other side.
Yep.
Okay, we are ready to go. Now, I have got cornmeal here. I've got some. When I filled up my container the other day, I had just a little left over, so I just put it in this bowl until I got ready to make some hoe cakes or whatever I was going to make with meal. But anyway, this is self-rising meal. It's already got all the rising agents in it. You don't need to add anything to it. And when you go to the grocery store, I buy White Lily, and it's called cornmeal mix. That means it's already got flour in it, and it's already got rising agents in it, and it's already got salt in it. So when you go, it's cornmeal mix. Now, if you want to get just plain cornmeal, for you old cooks that's the way you've always done it, that's fine. But we're talking more to people that's never made this and don't know what to do. So we're just trying to help them learn how to make some good hoe cakes. The cornmeal mix, all you got to do is I'm gonna fix about a cup of it. Now, and you can see how much this will make. I'm just going to put a cup right there. And I have got 3/4 cup of regular milk. This is 2% milk. Let me get a spoon here a minute. I'm going to put about that much sugar in this. Now, if you were using 2 cups, you'd probably put a tablespoon of sugar in it. Some people don't like sugar. If you don't like sugar, leave it out. I like just a little tad in mine. Now, let me crank you down here.
Okay, yep. And you can
Now, this is my cornmeal mix. And I cook in a Teflon skillet. I used to use iron skillets all the time. But when I started having so much trouble with my neck and my shoulders and things, the doctor told me not to be lifting those heavy skillets and things. So I use a Teflon pan. And I use vegetable oil. I don't use the bacon grease because it doesn't agree with my stomach. I've had stomach ulcers. So I have trouble with that. So I just don't. Now, we're going to pour in this milk just enough to make some batter. And I like just a little bit of buttermilk. Since I've only got a cup here, it's a little hard to do. But I'm going to say I put maybe about a 1/4 cup of buttermilk in there. But basically, you want to just mix in your stuff until your liquid ingredients, until you get your batter, just a batter about like pancake batter, if you've ever made pancakes. And I'll show you just in a second.
Okay. It's going to look yummy.
Okay, now, to me, that's still too gloppy. It's still too wet or too dry.
Yeah.
So we want to put just a little bit more milk in it. And just put a little bit at a time until you kind of, after you do this a couple times, you'll kind of get an eye for it. You'll know when it's about ready. Now we're almost there. Not hardly, but almost. If you put your dough in there and it's real thick, it's going to be a denser, a heavier hoe cake. If you like fluffy, light hoe cakes, then you want to get your dough a little thinner. Okay.
You can see it's getting a little better.
Yeah. And like this, if it looks like it's too thin, like I think I just got mine maybe too thin. Yeah, it's too thin. Just get you just a little bit more cornmeal. You haven't heard a thing. See? You can just put a little bit more cornmeal in there and stir it back up, and it won't hurt a thing. Now, that's about right, as you can see it. Okay, now, so I use 3/4 cup milk and about a quarter cup of buttermilk in this, and a teaspoon of sugar and a cup of meal. Now, we're going to start cooking the hoe cakes. You want to let your pan get hot. You don't want to put it in while it's still. But as soon as you put that hoe cake in, turn it down. Turn it down, like if your numbers go up to, mine goes up to 7, 8 high. You want to turn it down to about 3. And you don't want to cook these real fast. Now, I know people that do, but I never did. I want them to get good and done. I don't want no half-raw hoe cakes. I just don't like them that way. Some people, I've ate hoe cakes in the middle of them, will be doughy. It will be raw, and that's, to me, that's just not pleasing. So, I don't. And I don't put a lot of oil in my skillet. I don't float my hoe cakes in oil.
Yep.
One reason, I'm 65 years old, and I can look at oil and gain a pound. So, I mean, and I don't need any more weight on my joints, if you all know what I mean. And as you get older, you're going to find that out. So right now, I'm just going to put a little bit of oil in here. I'd say I've probably got about a tablespoon of oil. I use these because you can squirt it around and you don't have to put as much in your skillet. Now, let me get you over here just a little bit closer so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, now I'm going to watch this, and this is how I do it. I let it sit there for a minute and get really hot. I put my hand on it so I can tell it's getting hot. And then I will drop just one little drop. And when I can see that start sizzling, I know my pan's hot enough. So we're going to watch it here for just a second, because it will start sizzling here in just a minute. That's one thing I don't like about these new stoves. I don't know about you all, but I'm an old coil cook. I like the old electric coils. I don't like these new glass top stoves. Just not my cup of tea. Okay, I can tell that's getting hot now. And that's beginning to, that's beginning to cook. See, you can tell it's already turned brown on top. So now we're going to crank the stove down a little bit. And I'm going to drop in. Now, if you're just starting, just cook one at a time. Kind of spread your dough out. You don't want to get it real thin, but just, Now, I kind of take my oil and I let it go all around the hoe cake like that. Then I set it back down. I don't know if everybody else's allergies are kicking in or not, but mine are kicking in and they're driving me crazy. Okay, I've got my burner on 3. Whoops, get my little hoe cake off there. And you can kind of look at the bottom of it. Now, if it looks like it's cooking too fast and it's getting too brown before the bubbles come on top, raise your skillet off the burner. Just raise it off the burner for a second. Take it off the heat. Won't hurt a thing. You can start to see the bubbles in mine. Can you see the bubbles right here on top? Now, when the bubbles get started, if you try to turn it too soon, your hoe cake, now look at that pretty hoe cake.
Yep, so cool.
So now I'm going to sit it back down on the burner. And you'll see that hoe cake just rise up. They, oh my goodness, put you some butter on there.
Yep.
And, back during pioneer times, they put sorghum molasses, honey, butter, things like that, applesauce. They ate them all time of the day, any time of the day. They weren't necessarily a supper food. They ate them for breakfast, they ate them for dinner, they ate them for supper. So we have grown accustomed to eating them more for supper, in the South. More like eating them with pinto beans, greens, green onions, things like that. But you can eat them anytime you want to. Now this is probably done. It doesn't take very long. You can tell how long I've been cooking here. Maybe a couple minutes. But I let it stay just a little bit longer because I want it to get good and brown on that side. I don't want to burn it, but I want it good and brown. And if you haven't tried making hoe cakes, you try it. And you post it on a comment for me under this video. I would be thrilled to see it. I told somebody today, when I see you all cook something for the first time or be successful, like the biscuits, it's just like when my kids in my classroom would reach a milestone, get over a hurdle, an educational hurdle. And it would just thrill my soul. So I'm kind of that way with my cooking. I love to see people, the biscuits, I mean, to me it looks like a work of art. Even if they're crumply and crinkly and whatever, they still look good to me. Okay, now, this is done enough. You can see how it is. I'll turn it over. You can see that side. Now, you just put them here on the pan. Then you put you a little bit more oil in there. Not too much, just enough to... Then you put you another couple spoons of batter. Spread it out just a little bit. And just kind of let your oil go all around it to kind of seal the edges. And then we're going to let this one cook. And this is how you make hoe cakes, guys. Put you some butter on there, get you a big glass of milk and try one. Or put you some, you know, if you want to try it with molasses or honey or maple syrup or whatever you've got, go for it. Go for it. There's no rules about eating these. Eat them anytime you want to. They're good. They're good. They'll stick to your ribs.
Yep.
My grandpa always said you got to eat something that'll stick to your ribs.
Yep.
Okay, you can see the bubbles in mine. See the little bubbles starting to bubble up? That's a sign that it's almost ready. Just about ready.
It's almost done.
And you're better if you can start from the back of the hoe cake. Now, you can see that one. See what it looks like?
Cold.
But these are tasty, tasty. A lot of people like these with chili. So, try you some hoe cakes. And I hope that you all enjoyed this today. If you did, like the video, share it, and follow my page. Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Jesus loves you too.
Yep, everybody loves you. Bye.
Okay, guys. I'm finished with the hoe cakes. It made 4 big hoe cakes.
Yep.
You can see how big they are. So, that's how much 1 cup of cornmeal will make. So if you'd like to try it, if you need more than this, you might need to double it or use 1.5 cups and maybe a full cup of milk and a half a cup of buttermilk. But just try them and see what you think about them. I will post a recipe with a picture of the cornbread. I won't do it on this one, but look for a picture of this cornbread right here, and I will post a recipe with it. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.